Here's the lie that gets handed to every working adult the day they land their first real paycheck. Earn more and the problem fixes itself. It doesn't. I've sat across from people who tripled their income over a decade and are exactly as broke as the day they started, sometimes worse. Not because they're careless, not because they're bad at math, because nobody ever explained the actual mechanism that determines whether a household escapes the cycle, and that mechanism has almost nothing to do with the number printed on an offer letter. Right now, sitting in your checking account, there's a number that matters more to your future than your salary does. Most people have never calculated it. Most don't even know it exists. By the time this is over, you'll know exactly what that number is and exactly how to build it without waiting 5 years to do it. And there's a second thing I want you holding on to. Banks run a private classification system on the people who hold accounts with them. You've never seen it written anywhere. It's not on a statement, it's not in the terms and conditions you scrolled past, but it determines how profitable you are to the institution holding your money. And right now, there's a strong chance you've been sorted into the wrong category without ever choosing it. I'll tell you exactly what it's called and how you flip sides. Stay with me through this, because both of those things only make sense once you understand why a raise alone never solves this. So, let's start with the part nobody tells you. More income doesn't close the gap, it just raises the ceiling on the same trap. Picture someone earning $52,000 a year. Tight, but managing. He gets promoted. New salary, $61,000. Should feel like room to breathe. 18 months later, he's tighter than before the raise. Nothing dramatic happened. No single bad decision. A $640 apartment replaced the $541 because I can afford it now. A car payment of $400 a month showed up because the old one stopped feeling like it matched the new salary. 2 subscriptions nobody remembers signing up for. Takeout that crept from once a week to 4 nights. None of it felt like a choice in the moment. That's exactly the point. Lifestyle creep doesn't happen through decisions. It happens through the absence of them. Every extra dollar that hit his account already had a destination programmed into his life before the raise even arrived, and the destination was always spend it, because nothing in his system was built to ask otherwise. This isn't an accident of willpower, it's environmental. The $400 car payment doesn't register as reckless when your paycheck just went up $400. It registers as matched. That feeling of matched is the trap, and it resets itself every single time your income moves, which means the treadmill speeds up exactly as fast as you do. You can out-earn a lot of things in life. You cannot out-earn an unexamined spending default, because the default scales with you automatically, silently, every time. Now, here's a mechanism almost nobody has had explained to them properly, and it's hiding inside something you probably think is working in your favor, the rewards card. You think of cash back or travel points as free money sitting on top of purchases you were going to make anyway. The institution issuing that card thinks of it as a behavioral lever, and a well-documented one. Paying with physical cash creates a small, real psychological cost in the moment of the transaction. Behavioral economists call it the pain of paying. You feel money leaving your hand, and that tiny friction makes you hesitate even for a second on purchases that don't matter much. A card removes that friction almost entirely. No pain registers. And a rewards card doesn't just remove the pain, it replaces it with a reward signal. Every swipe becomes a small win instead of a small loss. You're not spending money, you're earning points. The brain treats those very differently, even though the dollars leaving your account are identical either way. That's not a side effect of the rewards program, that's the design. An institution issuer only profits meaningfully off a customer who never carries a balance through the interchange fee charged to the merchant, which is thin. The real revenue, the kind that funds those rewards programs in the first place, comes from cardholders who carry debt month to month at rates that sit nowhere close to anything you'd accept if it were explained to you plainly up front. The reward isn't the business. The reward is the bait that gets enough people swiping often enough and confident enough that a meaningful percentage of them slip into carrying a balance without ever deciding to. There's a third lever running underneath both of these, and it's the one almost nobody questions because it's been normalized since childhood. What your bank actually does with your money the second it lands in your account.
You deposit $3,000 into savings. The bank pays you back a fraction of a percent for the privilege of holding it. Meanwhile, under the standard reserve lending model most banks operate on, that same $3,000 becomes the base for issuing multiples more in loans to other customers, loans priced at rates many times higher than what they're paying you. The spread between what they pay depositors and what they collect from borrowers, multiplied across millions of accounts, isn't a side business for a bank, it is the business. Your money isn't sitting quietly in a vault waiting for you to need it. It's actively working, generating returns every hour it sits there. It's just not working for you. None of these three mechanisms, the lifestyle creep default, the rewards card friction removal, or the deposit spread, require anyone to be malicious toward you personally. They're just incentives, operating exactly as designed at scale on millions of people simultaneously. You happen to be one of them. And once you can see all three running at once, you understand why a raise alone never breaks the cycle. A raise just gives the same three mechanisms more fuel to work with. So let's resolve the first thing I promised you, the number that matters more than your salary. Most people trying to escape paycheck to paycheck attack the wrong target first. They hunt for more income, or they go to war with their coffee habit. Neither one touches the actual structural problem, which is timing. As long as your bills are due before this month's paycheck has fully cleared, you are mechanically forced into reactive decisions. Every dollar gets mentally spent before it physically exists, because you're always one step behind your own due dates. That's not a discipline problem, that's a sequencing problem. And sequencing problems don't get fixed by earning more, they only get fixed by changing the order money moves through your life. The number that matters isn't your income, it's the size of the gap between when your bills land and when your income covers them. Close that gap completely and something shifts that no budgeting app will ever show you. You stop reacting to money and start directing it. The tactical move here is what I'd call building 1 month of separation. Not 6 months of emergency savings sitting untouched in some far-off goal you'll hit eventually. 1 single month, built fast, with the specific purpose of letting next month's bills get paid using last month's income instead of this month's. Once that gap is closed, every paycheck that lands is no longer spoken for the second it arrives. It's already a month ahead of its obligations. That single structural shift is what actually kills the panic spending and reactive debt cycle, far more than any amount of careful budgeting ever could, because it removes the timing pressure that was forcing reactive decisions in the first place. Here's the part that explains why most people who try this give up before it ever pays off. Closing that gap doesn't feel like progress for the first few weeks. You move $40, then $60, then $100, and your bank balance barely moves the needle compared to the bills still chasing you. It feels exactly like nothing is happening, and that feeling is precisely where people quit, not because the method failed, but because the visible proof shows up later than the effort does. There's a threshold somewhere around 2 to 3 weeks of separation where something changes that no spreadsheet captures well. The next bill stops feeling like an emergency because for the first time, the money to cover it was already sitting there before the due date arrived, instead of landing the same week. That shift, from racing a due date to having already beaten it, is the actual moment the cycle breaks. It just doesn't announce itself loudly. Most people stop building the gap right before they would have felt it because the early weeks look identical whether the strategy is working or not. The only difference between the people who escape and the people who quit at week 2 is that the people who escaped kept moving money into that separate account, even while it still felt pointless. And here's where I want you to actually do something, right now, not after you finish watching this. Open a separate account today, not your everyday spending account, a completely separate one, ideally somewhere with enough friction that you can't tap it from the debit card sitting in your wallet without a conscious extra step. Move whatever you can into it right now, even if it's $40. The amount isn't the point yet, the separation is the point. You're not building an emergency fund in the traditional sense, you're building the 1-month gap that flips you from reactive to ahead. Every dollar you add to that account from this point forward is a dollar working toward closing that timing gap permanently. And the moment it's closed, the entire psychological weight of paycheck to paycheck living lifts because you're no longer racing your own bills. Now, the second thing I promised you, the classification. Inside the credit industry, there's old, blunt internal language for cardholders who pay their full balance every single month and never carry debt. They're privately referred to, in plain industry slang, as the least valuable kind of customer a card issuer has, because they generate transaction fees but never a cent of interest. Meanwhile, cardholders who carry a balance month to month are the ones actually fueling the profit engine, and internally, they're treated as the valuable ongoing relationship. If you've ever felt proud of paying your card off in full every month, good, keep doing that. But understand what it means inside the system you're using. You've already been sorted into the category the system considers least desirable. That's not a reason to stop paying in full. It's the opposite. It tells you, in plain terms, that the entire reward structure surrounding that card was never built with your benefit as the primary goal. It was built to make carrying a balance feel achievable, even savvy, for the segment the system actually depends on.
Once you see that, you start evaluating debt completely differently. And this is where the real separation between people who build wealth and people who stay stuck actually happens. It's not access to debt. Banks will extend credit to almost anyone with a steady income and a pulse. The separation is purpose. The middle-class default treats all debt as roughly the same category of bad, while routinely financing things that lose value the second they're acquired. A car loses a meaningful chunk of value the moment it leaves the lot. A financed vacation is gone before the statement even arrives. A buy now, pay later pair of shoes depreciates to zero in a season. None of that debt is paying you back in any form. It's a guaranteed net loss, financed at a rate stacked on top of itself every time it happens again. People who build real wealth use debt completely differently. They use it as leverage against something that has a realistic chance of paying for itself or appreciating over time. A rental property where tenants service the loan, equipment that increases what a business can produce, an investment opportunity that's been underwritten carefully rather than impulsively. The debt itself isn't morally different. A loan is a loan. What's different is the question asked before signing anything. Does this debt acquire something that loses value the instant I receive it, or something that has a genuine chance of paying for itself over time? Ask that question before every single borrowing decision for the rest of your life, and you will already be operating with more financial discipline than most of the country, regardless of your income. This is the actual reframe underneath everything I've walked you through. The middle-class script teaches you to fear all debt equally and chase income as the only lever that matters, while three quiet mechanisms, lifestyle creep, friction-free spending, and deposit leverage, work continuously in the background regardless of how much you earn. The version of this that actually works flips the entire frame. Income is not the lever. Sequencing is the lever. Purpose behind every dollar borrowed is the lever. And the 1-month gap between your bills and your income is the single structural change that breaks the reactive cycle faster than any raise ever will. None of this requires a finance degree. It requires going back through your own accounts this week and asking 3 specific questions. Where exactly is lifestyle creep currently running on autopilot in your life, completely unexamined? Which of your current debts are financing something that's already losing value versus something with a real chance of paying for itself? And how close are you right now, today, to having that 1 full month of separation between your income and your bills? Answer those 3 questions honestly, and you'll know exactly where you actually stand, not where your bank balance makes you feel like you stand on a given Tuesday. The escape from paycheck to paycheck was never about earning your way out. It was always about restructuring the order money moves through your life. And now you know exactly where to start. Be deliberate with it. Be a little suspicious of anything marketed to you as a reward, and build that gap before you build anything else.